The Supreme Court is about to start an entire new session, and the Freedom to Marry Foundation wants to pressure them to take up one of the marriage equality lawsuits that's currently working its way through state court systems. So they've produced an ad to encourage them along that line. Let's watch the ad.
One nation, indivisible, except if you're gay. In 19 states, gay couples and their children share in the protections that only the freedom to marry provides. In the others, they are banned from marrying. They're taxed unfairly, denied Social Security and parenting rights, and can lose a family home when their loved one dies. Every day of denial means real harms to real families. It's time to end marriage discrimination.
So yesterday we showed you the ad, Republicans are just like everyone else, and you rated it, you're a reviewer, you rated it as a good ad.
It's a really good ad.
What do you think about that ad? It's going to be playing on Sunday talk shows, I believe, in advance of the session starting.
A lot of gay people in it. I'd have spiced it up with some straights.
More gay than usual.
No, it's a good ad. It's a good ad. It had that heavy-handed. The fun thing I thought about the Republican ad yesterday was that it was, it felt authentic, and there was a sense of fun in it, which is exactly the point they were trying to make, which was we're not all crazy like David Dewhurst. We read the New York Times, we read it in public, we drive Volvos, we eat salad, we shop at Trader Joe's. We're normal, we're normal, we're normal, we're normal, which is what they're desperate to convince because everything that we see from them suggests that they're very much not normal. And this, it's fine, but it felt like an ad. I don't think there's an emotional connection with that ad.
The pictures, seeing the actual families. It's not a
we
person
don't know who
talking
they
at
are.
you.
There was no emotion. You're right. There was no emotion from that thing. So whatever they did it wrong. Because that's the thing about right wingers. They're all emotion, right? Which is what they project onto the left. Left, you're such weak. You're afraid. You want a nanny. But that's exactly what they want. They want an authoritarian figure to make sure that they feel safe, right?
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. Yeah, but as an ad, I don't think that was good. But let me say one thing because I just read a really interesting story. My wife and I got caught up reading about Kevin Aucoin, the great makeup artist and a guy who applied makeup to so many celebrities who you think are stunningly beautiful, and some people like Gwyneth Paltrow and Cher like swear by him. But not only that, but he was like this great guy. They felt like he was. Anyway, he had a peculiar, I think, pituitary disease, and he took too many painkillers from it, and he died in 2001, very young, at the height of his career. His company with his name still sells a ton of makeup, and he was gay, and his partner, and they'd been together like a year and a half because there was a fight between his family, and they're from Louisiana. They had accepted who he was, but there was a fight at the time because the partner left for Paris right before he died, and the guy lost the house. It's the house he lived in. He couldn't get into the apartment they had or the farm, and it was New York, and it was 2001, and the guy got nothing. Yeah. Nothing. They'd gotten married in Hawaii. It wasn't recognized, but everybody went. Everybody knew it was real. Everybody knew they had committed to each other and loved each other. And so the ad is correct in the 31 states where this doesn't happen. It's friggin' horseshit. Like, these people love each other. Of course they should get everything that married people get. It's nuts. And this was a very real story about a guy who literally got locked out of his house because his husband died.
Yeah.
You know, being gay in America, and I don't know if this is appropriate to say, but it's kind of a burden, right? So you have laws that are against you. You have the culture that you have to fight against, discrimination. So it's a burden to be gay in America. But I think a lot of people want to oppress them because they feel like they're getting away with something. Right? You know, it's like, oh, you're indulging. I'd love to wear a dress too and walk around in nylons and suck dicks all day, but I can't. But you get to, and it makes them mad, right? I think that's where all the suppression or oppression of gays come from, right?
Who got the house, though?
This was the article. It was a great New York Magazine article from 2001. I hope he got something. His mom was going to take it, and because they were furious at Jeremy Antunes, I think was his husband, and they weren't even necessarily fighting. They were just he gave him an ultimatum, like, get off drugs. I can't watch you die. I'm going to go away for a week. We'll come back, talk about this, and he happened to die in that week. So, but it's But I mean, I think it's a totally interesting point that, like, and it's true about everything. It's this idea, and now you see, we saw that poll that we did this week, I guess, on religion that white Protestants, that conservative evangelicals, they feel oppressed, they're constantly telling how they're persecuted and everybody's out to get them. And of course, if you feel oppressed, you then feel the others are getting away with something.
Yeah.
That gays get everything
Yes.
and blacks get everything, and now women are getting everything and we can't even punch them anymore. We can't even put them in their place anymore, and everybody gets so angry. I think that is it's a big part of it. This crazy notion that people who have a significant hill to climb just to get to where you and I are every day are somehow getting away with murder.
Well, yes, so they're getting away with murder, but they also chose it. It's a status. Everybody in town hates you. There's laws that discriminate against you, but you're somehow advantaged by it, and you just chose one day to do that. Even though there's no obvious benefits, you're choosing it. That's what seems ridiculous.
So would it be politically incorrect to suggest a remedy would be to say that because it is a burden for them to start talking about being gay as a burden instead of like a great thing? I don't know. That sounds contradictory, right? You shouldn't do that. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know. I'll shut up.
Well, look, they think the solution is having the Supreme Court actually adjudicate finally for all the states whether or not there should be marriage equality. And it's an interesting position. The Supreme Court is usually, they don't necessarily like to step into extremely contentious social issues, but when they do, it generally is because
they generally fuck it up royal.
They generally fuck it up. But I think in this case, there's a good chance that they might, because they're getting pressured by both those on the left and the right, both of which believe that they'll win if it gets to the Supreme Court. Not everybody, but both of them are pushing for it. And also, when they step in is generally when there's massive disagreements between states. And you see that right now, as they point out in that ad. 19 and the District of Columbia allow it, 31 currently don't. You can't have a situation where half the country is living under one set of laws and the other is living under a totally different one. This is generally, historically, when the Supreme Court steps in, so it's possible that they will.
Contradictory rulings from federal judges also, which is the other reason. So not just, so there's significant jurisdictional issues and clashes between federal courts already. It seems like, especially since there have been clashes in the federal courts, but most of them are coming down in favor of gay marriage. And they have now I think they have as many as 6. If Ohio adds its case to the mix, they can pick from any of 6 cases or take them all.
I always picture the evangelical out there who's organizing and advocating against equal rights for gays, and he sees that map and 19 states have given it to him, and you see that he's like, I think we can turn it around. I think we can get people to start hating again. We could do it. We could do it. I mean, that's what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
Probably sitting on a prayer rug.
Which he will then discard afterward. And look, the Freedom to Marry organization, obviously, they think they have a good chance of winning, but that's certainly not guaranteed at this point. I mean, as you said, the federal judges who are either striking down anti-marriage equality laws, that has been moving in the direction of those who want more equality, and generally people are much more in favor of it than they were 5 or 10 years ago, but that doesn't mean that the Supreme Court will rule.
The good news that we have in the Supreme Court is that there are 4 votes that we can lock in favor of gay marriage. They're guaranteed. And then the 5 that would be against it are not guaranteed. I mean, a couple of them are, but the fact is Kennedy could obviously go in the right direction, and so could John Roberts. So there's a couple of possibilities there that could tilt that in the right direction. But if it gets up there and it tilts in the wrong direction, then all of this progress could, at the very least, for a decade or longer, be completely nullified. Which would be
all
tragic.
back themselves into. I know you want to move on. Sorry, but in terms of logic, this is the long arc of time bending toward justice. Eventually, this will become the law of the land, and everybody will be able to get married. But until then, this idea of leaving it to the states and leaving it to the states. Well, what if you have states that allow it and want it, and then you have states that don't want it? Just to quell the chaos of all of it and the dissonance of all of it, the courts really have to act. You can't have a union that is supposedly perfect be imperfect for that long on an issue so significant. You cannot have that. You can't. It's one more. It's a disunited states, and you cannot. And when it starts when we talk about the family rights to a spouse when someone is dying, property rights. I mean, these go to the core of families and what it is to be with some partner or whatever that is.
Family values.
So family values. Thank you. I just can't. So if not this court, the next one, and so.
But it's and it's not like that when you see the states that have it. To follow up on Brian's point, this goes to like how the Supreme Court found Civil Rights Act constitutional.
Yeah.
They used the Interstate Commerce Clause, right? That, I mean, they totally abandoned any talk of rights, and all of it was, hey, if you're driving around and you're hungry and you're passing through different states, you got to be able to eat and you got to be able to stay in a hotel. And here, you know, people move, jobs move people, and if you get married in California and then you want to move to Arkansas, which doesn't have it, like this is not a little difference. It's not like, oh, you can gamble in Nevada, but you can't gamble in Utah. This is, so they have to act on it. I mean, this is, they really, they
married
must.
in one state, crossing the border, and suddenly being not married or unmarried is absurd.
It's absurd.
It's absurd.
It's absurd.
And so, they'll have to act.
Jesus. Yeah. No, you're totally right. And if they made a move to increase equality across the country, it would either be that or equal protection. This does seem like the sort of court that is far less likely to use the Commerce Clause in that way, at least on the conservative end. But that is a possibility.